Welcome to CMO's Off Script. We're 5 experienced health tech leaders offering trends, tips, and honestly, a few hot takes. Let's do this. Hey everybody, welcome to our final episode of the year. This is our off script episode. We are wrapping up the year, and I want everybody, if you have a glass near you, raise your glass. It's been a full year, ladies, of us recording, getting everything together. Bethany, where's your...
Spindrift.
There you go. Yeah. Or your puppy. Raise your puppy. Okay. And cheers. There she is. Let's cheers to ending off the year with a bang. This episode is really, we wanted to give everybody a little insight into what we're seeing as far as what's in and what's out for 2025. And it's going to be pretty casual. We're going to keep it really tactical, like we always like to give you all some tips that you can take back to your businesses, back to your teams. And so I'm going to start with just what's out. So what are you guys definitely not doing next year? Let's do a little bit of a round robin. Who wants to go first?
All right, I'll jump in. What's out for us next year is really super generic email blasts, sort of broad messaging, broad marketing, big email campaigns that are not super targeted, that kind of thing, both from our standpoint, but also as a recipient of those. Not interested, ignore them completely, not valuable. So really, that's out. Broad messaging.
Oh my God, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's like sitting in my head. And can I just pile on to that though? I know. Why agree all the time? But like, I just want to pile on with that because I have to say, I think AI has its place and we've got to make it a tool for good and not a tool for bad, and like distill down to like the most basic level. And I fear, we can talk about what's in, but I fear with AI, the risk right now is that we are literally distilling down to the bare minimum, and it's not, especially if you're not using it in the right way. Like, we're seeing a proliferation of content, and we're seeing a proliferation of dulling down to the middle, right? Or dulling down to like the most basics. So that is out. No dull, no boring. That, I think mine is going to be like, amp it up, be exciting. Okay, that's in. But what's out is boring, generic, dull. Yeah.
I'm going to pile on to AI. Oh, sorry, Bethany, you go first.
Well, it is a bit of a pile on. So I was thinking like, how great is AI? And there's going to be something about AI that's in for 25, of course. But what I'm seeing too much of is content that sounds like AI wrote it, and it makes me want to die. So like, I've had to stop that a couple times with content my team has produced, and I'm like, this feels so generic and boring and awful, and I'm sorry to say it. Like, feels like I hope a human didn't write this, because then we got other problems, but it sounds like ChatGPT wrote this and we got to fix it. So
I have told my team that. I'm like, this sounds like, this reads AI. I'm like, this reads AI. Our sales team knows. They say they've got the secret word. And if everybody wants to know the secret word not to use, make sure you avoid the word delve, because anytime it's used, our sales team knows AI wrote it. So if you're getting those emails that sound like delve, no, that's AI. That's not a human.
I want to layer on bad AI. Bad AI is out. So there's a type of email that we've been getting where it's where it pulls something from our personal profile online. So it's using the data to try and create that'll make you open it. I can't remember what the hook was, but it was something, I think, to do about my town and, the best place to get a cup of coffee or something like trying to connect using AI and using data, but it was such a stupid connection. Like it was such a not real that it made it offensive as opposed to just bad. Like I'm like, you're trying to create a connection that isn't there, and it sounds cheap and it's just bad. And we're seeing more of that. So using your personal profile to find data to try and make you open an email, and I think it backfires. I think it's so obviously AI generated that it backfires.
So leaning towards challenging the notion of not, or making sure that the things that we're sending out are personalized. What if you're an early stage startup and you just have to start somewhere? What's your advice to people then? Is it still spaghetti on the wall, or is it just pick a place and start there? And if it fails, it fails.
I think it's really this is some of the work that I think Nisha is solidly in your space, but I think you have to have a really good understanding of your product market fit. You have to start there, and then you niche down. You go deeper and say, who am I providing value to? And then you create a really thoughtful and robust program around that.
But know your ICP. Who is that ideal customer, right? Like, if you don't have that and you're just throwing crap all over here, there, and everywhere, like, AIing your way through this, like, you're not getting anything, because it's like, what is good for everyone is good for no one. Like, if it's not actually relevant to me, I don't care.
There's a verb I've never heard before: AIing my way through life.
But right, it is like totally a thing now, right?
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
This is B2B marketing, though. This is so solidly B2B. B2B is not a splatter technology. B2B is focused.
Agreed. And so my what's out for next year is it's leaning towards the AI space, which shouldn't be a shocker to anybody. But I am doing a lot of work for next year and not solely just focusing on writing content for SEO and writing content that is large language model friendly, because I think earlier this year, Gartner said that there was going to be a 20% or more than a 20% reduction of inbound just because of search volumes. And now a lot of people are using ChatGPT and other things to search and to get to places. And so I've been spending a lot of time researching, how do you put together content that's online that is friendly for LLMs, so that when people are searching and they're using that dialogue, it's actually bringing up the right relevant sources and you're included in that. Lots of learnings along the way, but I feel like we're so early into figuring out the shift from SEO to how to write content that's, LLM friendly. But it's like one of those things where, from my perspective, I'm like, we just figured out this SEO thing. Like, it feels like we just got it like just a couple of years ago. And then now we have to pivot again, which keeps things interesting. I feel like I'm getting to that place, and I'm encouraging people to think about that aspect for next year, because we'll probably learn a lot more about how to write content in the right manner, the structure of it, and all of that.
This is totally the life of a marketer, though, right? Never a dull moment. It is constantly changing. It is constantly evolving. The moment you think you're getting comfortable, be prepared, because change is waiting for you right around the corner. Yeah. I feel like that's both your do and your don't, right? That's what's in and what's out for, right?
Yeah, I would say like my what's out is stop focusing on only SEO. Yeah. Right? If your team, if your copywriters, if your digital marketers are only thinking about SEO for next year, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Dead in the water.
I am super curious to hear what the data turns up what the results of this year really are. Like what was the reduction in search volume? I am highly suspicious that it's a lot bigger than 20%. Like I think it's going to be massive. I think AI has taken over search in a significant way, both the move to using chat for search and Google using AI for results. That combination is absolutely just so destructive to classic search. So I think what you're saying is absolutely spot on and such a good takeaway from this call. I also think it's really pushing like bad content, light content that is sort of fluffy is done. There's no value in it anymore. And really thought leadership, perspective, opinion is really going to be much more important.
Yeah. I feel like this could be a whole other topic, honestly, because I've had so many learnings in the past couple of weeks of just, okay, when we're writing content for next year, what are the key tips and the key drivers to get there? And so I'd love to just talk through some of those elements too. We don't have time today, but there's a lot of changes from just that we know as traditional SEO and what these LLMs are looking for when they're querying and scraping websites. And it's really interesting. Like it kind of goes back to we have to reconfigure some of the way that we've been pushing out content and writing and even developing our websites even, right? Make sure that you're using meta tags in the right way. Like it's back to all of that old school stuff that we have geared towards, using as best practices, and now everything's changing. And so I think that would be a really cool topic for us to dive into.
I love that. That's really cool. And I always like it when marketing and just what we do is about quality, right? And I think that's what you're saying. It's about quality content, quality architecture. It's about quality. That's not a bad thing.
You know what I feel is out? Feel free to jump all over me. DE&I and corporations talking about being like responsible in those ways. It's just out. Like the election to me, just like we're just pivoting as a society and as a country into either, I don't know if it's backlash over that or what, but like I'm hearing crickets from the corporate level.
Oh, they're cutting the programs right, left, and center.
It's gone.
You're totally right.
It's gone. It's out. I don't know if that's good or bad. It just is. And as a marketer, I used to spend a lot of time focused on corporate responsibility and like having messages that like really resonate, like we're pushing that agenda and leaning into that as just like a company, from company culture out to the market. And now that's gone. Like people don't feel comfortable with it. They don't want to take a side in either direction. Like it's kind of crazy how that has gone silent.
Yeah. I'm not going to jump all over you, but what I will say is that I don't think that that even when it was a check the box situation in which, you had a D&I group internally, you've hired somebody out to do it, it never solved the actual core problem. And so I think that at this point, it's like we were just checking the box anyway with some of those initiatives. And, remember at this point from a brand perspective, when it was Pride Month and everybody was putting up their Pride logos and, changing their logos. And it was almost like, well, you had to do it because everybody else was doing it and you didn't want to look like the insensitive jerk. But when you take a step back as an organization, I mean, do you have an inclusive environment? And that was, I think, the thing that was challenging most companies. And so I think I'm disheartened by a lot of the pullback, but I do think I see why. I see the reasoning behind it. And so it's a really good call out, Bethany, as far as a bit, from a business perspective and kind of that lens of what's out for next year.
Yeah.
I hope that the underlying issues that are clearly systemic in our country, and I don't want to spend too much time going on this, but I hope that we're not giving up on actually trying to solve those things. But I also recognize that companies are pulling back, and some of it was simply just a wash. It was the veneer, if you will, of actually caring and trying to address some of these much more systemic issues. And I think the reality is like, as businesses, there is a strong role to play. There's a strong role to play for businesses when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to education, right? Because this is where there is a lot of money, time, and people investments in these different spaces that gives businesses an opportunity to play a role in trying to advance society, or you just don't care. So, and you're focused on bottom line. And so I think the reality is you care as much as it takes to get the bottom line where you want it.
Yeah, anyway. I think the fact that it's changing I agree with what you're saying, Nisha, that it didn't solve systemic issues, and it's a lot more honest. I don't love it, but it's more honest because the systemic changes weren't happening. So if we're just washing it to try and fit in, then it's not a good answer anyway. But it's not a great direction either. So hopefully through this we find a path that includes humanity.
Hear, hear.
Cheers to that. Cheers to that.
Okay, so we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about what's in for next year. I feel like a lot of what we've talked about, no surprise again, was AI themed and trying to move towards that direction. Feeling like a lot of what's in might also be headed towards that direction too. Anybody have anything that's not AI related that wants to go first?
100%. One of the things that we are having the most success with is super raw interview video. So interviewing clients, interviewing thought leaders, and then using those snippets on social media, on the websites, using them as mini case studies. We see that as hugely successful. And what I'm seeing is the move away from the polished video, the polished produced pieces, and in this move towards just people being real. And I think the AI, well, AI is probably, we will have a whole discussion about AI, but AI will be doing a lot. I think what isn't going to go away and what is going to become more important is authentic voices, talking about real things. And I think video is one of the best places for that. So that's what's in.
I will pile on a little bit. I just had a request the other day from a YouTube influencer. It happened to be, it's in the B2B space, right? So the influencer model in B2B, I think, is continuing to grow, as we've seen it be very successful on the B2C side. It's not maybe as fun on the B2B side. It could be. I think there's a lot of room to grow and be creative on that front. But everything from people reviewing products in the B2B space, like I think there's a lot of uncharted territory there still, despite G2 and Gartner playing a role, Capterra, like review sites are a big deal when people are making technology purchases, for instance. Mm-hmm. So this idea of like, I think I see a lot more of these cropping up where they find success. So Class, for instance, is a place in healthcare where people go to review various tech applications. There's other sites coming up online. Allianz one that I've seen recently. And like, I think not only is there interest in that sort of go to a review site where you trust people's responses, and there's some level of sort of research that's been done, and almost like, a Yelp site for SaaS, but to have ability to peruse through those formats is pretty interesting for people. So it's a combination of things, like this idea of like, how do you leverage influencers? But then that is an influencer channel, is this review site kind of model that I see more and more. It's a good business model for those individuals because there is a pay to play side of that business, but there is also like the sort of research side that I think they try to keep, a separation between church and state there. So I'm seeing that more and more.
I agree with you completely, Bethany. I think the review sites are really, really powerful. Then that has not waned at all.
Well, and I think especially in a world where there is just an insane proliferation of noise. I mean, I was having conversations this time last year with a number of CEOs who are like, how do we cut through the noise in the market, right? And so finding places where you can be that just that pointy edge of cutting that allows you to cut through, I think is so much more important. And, if you harken back to the earlier part of the conversation where we see this continued proliferation of garbage content, where are you going to go to find those resources? And I think that's really valuable. And I think if we can continue to increasingly plug those places as places to go and get content or get information, trusted information, fantastic. I was going to say, and I think this ties back to our earlier conversation and probably, I think, Laura, to what you were saying, but I think really making sure that, and I think this is not new, but I think it's just a reminder that as we go into 2025, can we be truly thinking about our audience and making sure that the content is relevant and personalized to them, and be human? Can we be human in a world where we live in AI? I want to hear things that feel human and not generic and not untargeted. So please, and have some fun while you're at it. Don't take yourself too seriously. I mean, the response that we got to some Moodang posts were fantastic. And if you don't know who that is, you need to know. So please go do a little search and have a bright spot in your day. That is my gift to you. So I think authenticity, yes, personalization, humanization, and fun should be included in this conversation for 2025.
Great.
Thank you, Bethany, for your post. And check out Bethany's post, by the way. Go check out her LinkedIn. She has a lovely post on having fun. Don't miss it.
You're sweet.
Don't snooze on it.
We have fun.
I love that.
We have fun. It's better with fun.
So, I kept you guys at keeping it non-AI, but, I'm going to throw something, I'm going to do a little throwback to something that Bethany actually suggested earlier this year as far as what's in and trending. And Bethany, you said something along the lines of stop using stock images, right? There's so many cool tools right now that you can utilize to spruce up stock. And so I'm going to do a little throwback there, but anything you want to add to that, to that specific point?
I still stand by that point. I'm there. We're doing that all the time. And I think it's really great for budget conscious organizations, right? Just play around a little bit, see what's out there. And AI is innovating every day with what you can do. So I don't know. Keep going, Nisha. I'm in.
I have two, actually. Does anybody else want to throw in theirs before I sort of wrap up this episode?
I have one more. It's not AI related because
perfect.
I was on that. I've mentioned this before, but for me, and I think Amanda, you touched on this a little bit. Creativity is king, and in B2B, I think for a long time we've decided we are boring to boring. That's not okay. B2B does not stand for boring to boring. And the Cannes Creative Festival 2 years ago launched their first B2B focused Cannes Lion Award. There is a ton of competition in that space. They told me the other day, because I've signed up for their resource, which is access to all their creative the creative content they get from all the applications for the Cannes Lion Awards. And so I've applied for that, or, I'm a member of that service. And they said the other day, because I was talking about how it's really tough, my team doesn't see themselves as creatives. And I'm like, it's blowing my mind. I'm like, we've got copywriters, designers, like strategists, like we're creatives, like that's what we are. But they don't see themselves that way. And the Cannes Lion team told me only like 2% of B2B marketers actually see themselves as creatives. And that blew my mind, but also kind of not, because every team I come into, that like I have to train, like kind of talk them into the fact that they're creatives, and that that this is a creative field, creative genre. I have a creative team that I'm managing, and we need to like give them care and feeding in the way that creatives need, which is a little different than other functions, frankly. So we have to pay attention to that. But I call that out because I think more and more people are seeing the value there and seeing it move the needle from a business perspective. And that's the reason I'm in this profession, is because I see such a beautiful way to move the business forward through my creative prowess. And like, that's why I wake up every morning and what gets me excited every day. So I do think we'll see more of that going forward. I do think B2B marketers will start to see, like, enter this field with that in mind, instead of it being some like, I can't hack it in B2C kind of framework. It's like, no, there's really exciting, cool stuff happening on the B2B side, and we should be excited to be here. And it's a tough place to be. There's like a lot of nuances to working with our audiences that's different than B2C. So anyway, just a plug for B2B, not boring to boring.
I love that. Bethany, that was fantastic. Absolutely love everything you said. It was like a call to arms, and I love it.
Super fun.
So let's revisit that in the new year. Let's not forget that as a theme, because I think it's a brilliant, brilliant context.
Yeah. And so playing off of some of, going into next year, and if you are, one of my tips is, if you are a leader that has some budget and is looking for some SDRs, look into either an AI SDR moving into next year, because there are plenty out there, or look into an approach in which you're powering your SDR team with some AI, which is also there's a lot of new functionality that gives people, list building, scripting, all sorts of call down lists, things that they can actually just gear off of. And so they're not starting from scratch. And at this point, do not just hire an SDR without looking into some of these tools, and make sure that you have it within your budget for going into the next year. That's my big what's in for next year. And then my second one is this podcast. This podcast is what's in for next year.
In. Boom.
We have so many topics lined up for the beginning of the year, all around everything we just talked about and more. Hopefully you all, our audience, have found this interesting, and we want to continue to improve. And so as you're listening, if you have other thoughts or suggestions on how we can make this more tactical, make sure that we're getting you guys the right set of advice, please let us know. We love feedback. And we would love to maybe have a couple of sessions on just your questions itself. And so if you have specific questions we can help address, let's do it. We want to give a shout out to the missing member of our team. Julia, we miss you so much. And we hope that you are doing well. She's going to be joining us in the new year, kicking off for 2025. And so thank you so much to all of you ladies. This has been a fantastic year, and thank you for joining me today.
It's been a treat.
Thank you. Have a good wrap up. See you in 2025.
That's a wrap for this episode of CMO's Off Script. This podcast was made possible by Breezy Hill Marketing. Don't forget to explore the podcast notes or cmosoffscript.com for additional insights and resources. Until next time, be bold and stay curious.